I honestly have mixed options on which episode I'm gonna be reviewing for Cartoon Crisis this month involving Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. People say that some of the episodes like Foster Goes to Europe or The Big Cheese are really horrendous when it comes to each of the characters being ruthless and just downright stupid to annoy the other characters. But for me, the episode, well, they completely made Duchess a main character, despite the fact that she never been used ever again after this episode. I think it really goes to show that they pretty much don't know what to do with Duchess after the first episode from the show. Duchess of Wails is a prime example of Mac getting tortured, and the fact that the imaginary friends, including Frankie and Madame Foster, are just instantly being out of their minds just to have Duchess stay away from the mansion. Yes, I will admit that Duchess is really annoying to handle, but at the same time, considering what we saw from the very first episode from the show, this episode felt like it was written by people who didn't watch the first episode. This episode starts off with Duchess completely annoying the other characters by doing every single little thing that she refuses to do, like having Frankie turn off the alarm clock, because apparently she doesn't want to turn it off because she's fancy and the clock is made out of plastic. As you can really tell, since that Duchess is still at Foster's, she is so ungrateful no matter what. Literally everything that the other characters are doing is just really one of the reasons onto why people just cannot stand her instantly. I understand that Duchess is an imaginary friend, but at the same time, it really goes to show that after this episode, this episode should have been rewritten, but like every other episode, we always say that all the time, and I'm just gonna say it right now that any bad episode just has to happen to have characters like Duchess and Terrence, which I'll get to later, in order to make the episode much more frustrating to understand. Anyway, the reason onto why Duchess is allowing demands from other imaginary friends is that Mr. Hellman made this plaque on a imaginary friend deserves some kind of service from the workers and stuff like that, even if they're a royal pain in the butts. The issue with that is that I don't think that Foster's, even if I did mistake it as a hotel, isn't really as a hotel whatsoever. It's a mansion for imaginary friends to stay until they get adopted. This word that Mr. Hellman just adds further questions in the fact that they really didn't have any other idea in order to completely change these words in order to have the imaginary friends behave. I get it. Imaginary friends aren't like humans in this show, but at the same time, they also need to actually learn if they're going to be adopted from other kids in the neighborhood that Mac lives in. Now, to be fair, Mr. Herman tried everything to get Duchess to be adopted, but no matter what, nothing happens. And I will admit that's probably one of the only funny moments I've seen from bad episodes from the show. So, after a few families come over, Duchess just completely denies. But then, all that changed when they meet the Applebee's family. And I know that the gimmick is to be happy no matter what, but just by the end, just when what happens towards the middle of the episode, they really took it way too far. So anyway, the Applebee's are willing to adopt a Duchess, which completely shocks everyone, which means that they don't have to be concerned on taking care of Duchess anymore. Which means that they're gonna throw a party. Yeah. I understand people want to do celebration in order to get rid of a character that they absolutely despise. We all go there. We all been there before. So, well, it's rude, but still. So anyway, when Mac heads home, he realizes that Duchess is right by his apartment, and the Applebee's is his neighbors. And this leads to the Mac torture of the episode. not only he's shocked at the fact that Duchess is now his neighbor, but no matter what he does or what he's trying to do, minding his own business, Duchess completely complains about literally everything. I have no idea onto why managers did not kick out the Applebee's from causing trouble, despite the fact that Duchess is. But seriously, this is the bit, well, we reached to the torture Mac torture of this episode. You can really tell that he is really getting sick and tired of it, and it's not even hilarious at all. I get it. Duchess is more like a person that is from Paris, and she wants to go to Paris. But considering the fact that she's in an environment that she absolutely despises everything, I honestly do not understand onto why Mac and Blue in the other imaginary friends thought of the idea to send Duchess to Paris. Yes, I get it. The mansion is for imaginary friends to get adopted, but still. This would easily fix any of the issues, and we haven't gotten to the biggest issue involving Duchess being Max's neighbor. Max's mother had enough of all the screaming and nonsense from the neighbors, and if this keeps it up, then they're gonna be moving. And this leads to Mac completely really scared of the fact that he won't be able to meet Blue and the other imaginary friends if this ends up happening. And Chance, considering the fact that he was the one that caused all this to happen, said that they're gonna be moving to Singapore, which is far away from imaginary friends. You know, as far as I'm concerned, considering that Talents and Duchess were used to work together, I honestly won't believe that he actually set up this entire idea on setting the Applebee's to Foster's in order to adopt Duchess. But then again, that's just my theory of what really happened onto why the Applebee's decides to adopt Duchess in the first place. Now, the only option to have Duchess out of the Applebee's apartment is that Blue and Mac have to sabotage the entire apartment and actually make them think that Duchess was responsible about this. And this leads to the biggest issue I have with the Applebee's family, like I mentioned before. Other than a good joke of having Blue wearing a little Max instead of a black Max, which is pretty much cute. By the way, this is the only episodes where Blue is actually likable, since that this episode didn't make him rude. And after they completely sabotage the entire apartment with toilet paper, destroying the cake, completely ruining the images, the pictures on the wall, not to mention ruining the equipment up there. I'm sorry, I don't know the names. And also give their daughter a terrible haircut. In other words, a bad hair day. That did not work out whatsoever. I cannot take this seriously. I cannot handle how much of how they made this family way too happy for one of the wrong reasons. I'm sorry, but I get this is part of the joke, but at the same time, they really made this family way too happy to have some kind of personality. I get it, they're supposed to be a joke, well, they pretty much are happy at anything, but this is something that is so unrealistic that it just furthers the plot forward than it already has. And I'm really serious. It's honestly really one of the dumbest things I've seen from Foster's. I know some people didn't have an issue with this part in the episode when people are literally talking about the torture that Mac is going through and the ending we'll get to later. But at the same time, this is just beyond hard to actually look at. If there were other cartoons that were like this, it would probably be a terrible copycat that people really need to avoid. Anyway, without any other option, Mac decides to move, but Blue is completely relentless. So, because of the thing that I showed you on Miss Iron showed to Mac and Blue earlier, Blue found a way to have Duchess back to Foster's. And to be quite honest, what Mac says, Blue is actually a genius in this, but considering that we have 8 more minutes left, the worst has yet to come. Remember Terrence, who is completely a jerk to Mac, well, apparently he's still actually an importance in this episode, which is really phoned in. I mean, the talk that he had with Mac about moving to Singapore is just literally a way just to scale Mac in order to have him not meet his imaginary friend anymore. So just him doing this is just making this episode way longer than it already is. I know episodes like The Imposter's Home for Makeup Up Pals and Everyone Knows His Bendy had terrible pacing issues, but this, they really don't know how to fill this in for 22 minutes. And for somehow, after being tripped in mud, he managed to make it to Foster's before Mac and Blue. I understand that he's the older brother, but at the same time, it doesn't excuse the fact that he got there first than the others. And not only that, you pretty much know that the people who live at Foster's absolutely do not trust Terrence whatsoever after what he did in the very first episode, along with other appearances that he did towards Mac. So you would really think that they would go against Terrence, but apparently they didn't. In fact, when Terrence completely said when when two people, he didn't say Blue and Mac, but two people are sending Duchess back to Foster's, they immediately condone with him by preventing them to have Duchess be anywhere near the mansion. And as far as I'm concerned, this leads to the issues that I have with this episode as a whole. The climax, if you can call it, involves the Fosters facing off Mac and Blue, preventing them from sending Duchess back to Foster's. And not only that, they completely see Mac and Blue the entire time. And I'm not saying that because Duchess was blocking them from having the other characters see them. I know full well that they pretty much saw them for the first thing before they stopped the war. And as far as I'm concerned, this is really, really juvenile and childish, if you ask me. There are so much moments in this show that they made the characters way more immature and also juvenile in order to make the plot work. And I'm sorry, but by the time this episode was released in 2005, and by the time 15 years later, this episode, along with other episodes that are bad, are really dated at this point. And I honestly think that this moment involving the battle between the Fosters versus Blue and Mac, who's just trying to send Duchess back to Foster's so that Mac doesn't get to move, is honestly way hard to take it seriously and actually way more stupid and idiotic. I get it, they hate Duchess, but at the same time, they didn't think of a way to resolve this whole situation of having Duchess being behaved like other imaginary friends. Seriously, Duchess is the only imaginary friend that acts this way, and when you have other imaginary friends completely doing the work for her, instead of just having the work, instead of just having her do the work by herself, is honestly really is honestly something that should have some changes in the house. Believe me, I cannot stand on the fact that they had to do this plot in order to have some kind of ideals of what they can do for this episode. Believe me, I absolutely despise plots like this when they try to have the other characters do something for Duchess, despite the fact that there should be some changes. I mean, Frankie, I can understand since she's the housekeeper, but everyone else, that is just so unacceptable, especially the fact that Coco, Walt, and Eduardo are not employed in this house, in the mansion. So it just makes the entire climax of this way more stupid and not even really entertaining to watch. Look, the moments of having Blue and Mac completely facing the Fosters is honestly something that can work in fanfiction, even by 2005 standards. I honestly think that there's supposed to be a conversation between the other characters in order to work things out. And they did. There was, after they completely took down Blue and Mac. And then when they completely have a conversation with them, and knowing that if Duchess is staying at Mac and Mac has to move out to Sandport, they really don't want that to happen. You know, I would consider forgiving these characters for causing the fight, but at the same time, they were stupid enough to fall with Terrence's idea on just trying to start the war in the first place. It's mostly your fault that you trust Terrence, and the fact that he was the same character who completely caused all the havoc in the first episode. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even blame the writing of this. I just blame the imaginary friends for being stupid that actually fought for Terrence. And the fact that Terrence got away with it just to have Mac and Blue being up is honestly way more childless. And at this point, Terrence in this show is honestly nothing more than a plot device at this point. I mean, in the first episode, when I review that episode in the future, it makes sense for the most part, but every other episode, including this one, he's literally out of his mind. I get it, he's supposed to be stupid, but at the same time, it goes way too far. So, there is one condition that Duchess can stay at Foster's, and that's having Mac and Blue completely being servants to Duchess, without any changes whatsoever. Really, after everything that you caused these two characters on trying to get Duchess back to home, and then not only that, Mac has school that he shouldn't be here at the moment, and this could also lead to Mac's mother finding out on if Mac has been to school whatsoever. That's actually kind of a plot hole that they caused just at the end of the episode. Believe me when I say this, is that this ending is honestly one of the worst endings I've ever seen from this show. Not as worse as everyone knows as Benny, but it's still up there. And the fact that Duchess doesn't actually learn anything. I honestly do not even care at this point that she deserves some treatment, because if she is the rudest character in the entire match in the Fosters, then she doesn't deserve special treatment. For someone who deserves special treatment is for someone who's actually really loyal and respectful. And since there was no imaginary friends who are like that, well, other than Wilt, I honestly think that the special treatment towards Duchess in this episode, from the beginning and in the ending, is honestly undeserved if you ask me. That's really all I have to say about this episode. This episode was just a train wreck for how they really made the characters really stupid to convince Terrence Duchess returning to Foster's, and the fact that they had to attack Mac and Blue, preventing them to gain back to Foster's. I really felt bad for Mac in this episode, and Blue, since that he was actually likable in this episode, doesn't deserve any of the punishment whatsoever in this episode. As far as I'm concerned, if they actually care about Mac and Blue hanging out with each other, while Mac coming to Foster's every other day, then they should make some major changes. Mr. Hellman, I have mixed opinions towards you, but at the same time, this does not work. The idea of having someone completely giving them support, even if they're a warrior pain in the butts, does not excuse everything in this episode. Besides, I would rather see of how the Fosters actually learn, the imaginary friends actually learn some new things, like opening a school or something, like trying to make them learn educational stuff like the kids do. I get that they can't go to the schools that Mac and Terrence go to. So as far as I'm concerned, after everything that they did in this episode by completely taking down the imaginary, taking down Blue and Mac, they really deserve some education of what they did. And as far as I'm concerned, it's honestly one of the biggest, it's honestly one of the dumbest things I've ever seen from this show. I know I keep paddling on, but this episode really bugged me so much ever since I watched it. I mean, I did enjoy the fight between the imaginary friends versus Mac and Blue, but when you get older, you see a lot going on, and the episode just gets a lot more stupider the more you think about it. All I can say is that even though this is the final episode I'm going to be reviewing from Fostos, I'm actually kind of glad that it will probably take me a while if I'm going to be reviewing other bad episodes from this show. Because believe me, I have so much decisions on whatever episode I want to review from this show. And since I picked this one as my top priority for this month, it's probably the best choice. Because as far as I'm concerned, there are other episodes that might be worse than this, but at the same time, Duchess of Wails is honestly one of the most frustrating and stupidest episodes from Fostos. I give this episode a 3.5 out of 10.